Well, good afternoon, everybody. I've just taken a minute to do a brief introduction to Daniel. Bill Wakes Up. I don't know if I said that right, but we know him as Daniel. We've been working with Daniel for several months now on a strategic enrollment management plan. We had some people from academic leadership and then some for student services. And so he's going to present our final results. I'll turn it over to you, Dean.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Daniel Villanueva, as Melinda introduced me. Sorry, I'm just a minute late. I was at the other auditorium waiting. I presented several times, and the only auditorium I knew about was the one across from the president's office. So I was waiting. And then as soon as the time was ready, right, I was like, well, maybe they're in there waiting. I opened the door, barged in, and a class was happening, right? I'm like, oh, so sorry, wrong audience. And they looked at me, and they were confused, and I didn't even explain. I just turned around and walked right off. They're probably like, who is that guy? So I apologize. But I am here to do the findings and kind of the result of our work thus far with the Strategic Enrollment Management Plan and really delivering kind of the results of this project and open for feedback, comments, concerns. One of the things that I've learned in higher ed leadership just writ large is nothing is final, right? Even when you think it's final, it's not final. Even after you have a final strategic plan, it becomes iterative because data changes, the world changes, and life happens for all of us. There was not an institution that predicted in 2018 that there would be a pandemic, right? And therefore, their strategic plan included how the world should respond to a pandemic. So I share all this because these are the results as of today. This is where we are today, and these are the plans moving forward, always understanding that continuous feedback from the constituents, the community, the environment, will require us to check in periodically to see what adjustments need to be made and how we need to pivot in one direction versus the other. So I say that to give my kind of caveat to the presentation. But I thought I'd start out with kind of educating the group a little bit about what we did, how we did it, who was involved, and the timeline. And I also had to stop by Sheetz, because if you don't have a Sheetz coffee, right? In Texas, we don't have Sheetz or Wawa. And if you follow me on social media, I'm obsessed with Wawa. It's the greatest thing. Sheetz is second, right? So I had to stop and give me a Sheetz coffee because fresh brewed coffee, right? So if I seem energetic, thank you, Sheetz. Before I formally start, I always like to figure out who's in the audience, who do I anticipate will be offended, who will really enjoy it, and then who will just kind of be kind of quizzy, kind of like, oh, I'm not sure. So anytime you're presenting a plan for college, there will be 33% of the people that will have been involved, engaged, and will love the plan. 33% of the people are like, I don't know why I'm here. This ain't going to work. Nothing ever happens here. We don't have the money. This isn't really going to happen. Right? And then there's 33% of the people that are like, this could happen. And if it does happen, this could make us a different college. So I'm really looking for the first and the last group, right? The second group, I could give you raises today, and you would still say his ugly purple suit didn't match the colors of the institution, right? So I say that by asking, who am I visiting with? So by a show of hands, I'll ask kind of the areas of the college. If you'll just show me your hand and where you represent, that'll kind of give me a lay of the land of who I'm speaking to. So if you're from student services, student affairs, in that area, raise your hand. It's okay. They got some champion award-winning music. You hear what Linda thinks about you all, right? As soon as y'all raise y'all's hand, we got some award-winning music. So we have student affairs over there, okay? Academic affairs. Any academic affairs, okay? Any faculty, okay? Anybody from administration and finance? No. Spanish. Okay. Any students? Likely not because it's summer, right? But any students? Any marketing, institutional research, technology, IT? Okay. Is there a group I missed?
And CCR.
So that.
Academic? Oh, I'm sorry. So we already included.
Okay. Anybody else?
Workforce development.
Workforce development. I consider that under academic affairs, but that different colleges, right? So workforce development, anybody? Specifically in the workforce? Okay. Alrighty. So let's talk about it. So what is a strategic enrollment management plan, right? It really is a little bit different than an institutional strategic plan. So you all have heard about an institutional strategic plan. Anytime there's a new president or every 4 or 5 years, an institution will put out a new plan as a guiding principles of where they believe the institution should go. It's always influenced by the constituents within the organization and some outside the organization. And there's a little bit of difference between a strategic plan, which is really overarching goals for the institution, and a strategic enrollment management plan. And the difference is the strategic plan oftentimes is talking about the life cycle of the entire student, the financial feasibility of that institution, and its engagement with the constituents, both internal and external, and kind of the milestones for student success, right? But all of that can't be built unless there are students in classes. And so a strategic enrollment management plan really looks at the institution holistically in multiple ways to figure out, can an institution grow? You'll never hear a president say, I don't want to grow. I actually want to shrink the size of the organization. Let's cut our budget. I've never met one. But if you find them, let me know because I want to work for them, right? The people that I've always met want to increase enrollment and then want to expand the budget. Now, why do they want to do that? Are they bored? They just feel like, hey, I want to be known for greatness. There's 2 reasons they do it, right? The first reason is to transform the region and the state that they're involved in, right? Because they're passionate about education. Likely they've had a personal lived experience about the transformation of education, and they know that on a deep value. The second thing that no one talks about in higher ed is that you cannot operate a college without students and money. That's an uncomfortable thing for us to think about in higher ed, because oftentimes we've not had these conversations. We don't talk about return on investment. We don't talk about financial stability. We don't talk about those. And oftentimes in the role of who we serve at the institution, whether you're faculty or student services or deans, you may not be involved in those conversations. When I was completing my dissertation, I was visiting with the chancellor of a major university, and we were talking about academic capitalism, which is what my dissertation explores, is the intersection of capitalism and higher education. And so I was talking to this chancellor, and I was asking why faculty aren't engaged in enrollment management, why they don't feel like it's their role to help the institution move forward. And he said, remember, faculty hardly even know how the lights come on. And he said, that's not a shot at them, that's not their job. They're here to teach. And so your role is to help educate them about this along the way. It is not to just assume that they understand. And so one of these things that we've made sure in this project is that we've kept consistent communication with the constituents to share this information about why it's important. The president may or may not say it is important because we need money, right? But have you read and heard all the colleges nationwide that are closing, right? It's not because one day they just decided, oh, we don't have enough money. Richard miscalculated, right? It's because conversations about enrollment have never happened. There have never been discussions about what new programs do we need to do, what hard decisions do we need to make now that have short-term impacts for our long-term sustainability. So that's what a strategic enrollment management plan does. It allows us to really look at different components and really think about how the institution moves forward with enrollment. So you might be asking yourself, like, well, what are those components, right? Well, here are the 6 components of enrollment management. And these are very particular to enrollment versus institution, which sometimes is challenging for institutions to understand. So when we look at the first one, we talk about marketing and outreach. There's a difference between enrollment marketing and outreach and institutional marketing and outreach, right? So if we're going to decide, hey, let's go get a billboard on the side of the road, is that enrollment marketing or is it institutional branding? Right. So most institutions focus on institutional branding, the logo, the colors, the magazine ads, right? The billboards. Those are help driving your brand awareness. But there's a very particular area of enrollment called enrollment marketing that is only leveraged for transactions, right? So the difference, truck driver is driving down one of the interstates and sees Randolph Community College. That is for them to know that, hey, there's a community college in this area. Probably the population you serve, your colors, and that you're in the North Carolina Community College system, that you're there. It doesn't do anything else but that, right? But enrollment marketing is a transaction. It asks someone to do something to change their behavior. And those are two very different things. So oftentimes when I'm visiting with executives and I say, we have a great marketing plan, you look at the marketing plan, the entire thing is about branding. It's not about how do we move and convince a student to enroll. And you can brand all you want, but if you're not changing student behavior to enroll, right, you're marketing for irrelevancy. So one of these areas is marketing and outreach. And what we did here, we'll go through extensively in terms of the finding and how we can leverage enrollment marketing. And the assessment that we ended up getting is that we need to leverage enrollment marketing. That does not mean we're not doing marketing. That does not mean what we're currently doing is not working. That means the areas that we have focused on have really been about brand awareness, which helps to influence, but we need to take a step further to enrollment marketing. When we talk about recruitment and admissions, we're really talking about selecting and admitting students. And for community colleges, this looks a lot different than it would be for a selective four-year institution or a graduate program. Our community is really our students. And so we're not necessarily looking at how we select them in terms of do they meet the admissions process, the admission standards, but they have to meet an admissions process. And for those of you who've ever bought a home, right, if you're gonna go buy a home, you don't just go buy a home by yourself. What's the first thing you do? Anybody? You go get a realtor, right? Because that's a complex process that we don't do every day. And the realtor is like, oh yeah, you do this. Oh yeah, you do that. Oh yeah, then you fill out this. Oh yeah, right? That is the same thing that happens when they come to a college, yet there's no realtors. They have to figure out this. You start talking about, we need a residency questionnaire. What in the hell is a residency questionnaire, right? It's like the same thing a realtor would tell you, like, we need these closing documents. I need a tax transcript for financial, I don't know, right? So when we think about recruitment admissions, we really have to think about how we simplify these processes to begin to serve as the realtor to our students. Because although there's not a admission standard, meaning, you have to have a certain GPA or an open admissions campus, the process is complex and in and of itself will deter students from even applying or navigating if we don't simplify the process. And one of the hardest things to do is to work with people who are embedded in these processes, who use the language of the processes and establish a culture of the processes to people who don't know the processes, right? So when people talk about residency questionnaire, a student doesn't know what that means, right? And so how do we think about our recruitment and admissions processing so that we could help students through that fun? Onboarding and enrollment. How do we think about once they've been admitted, once they've navigated through that, what is their experience to come into the college? How are we setting them up for success? And then how do we ensure that through that process, they know what classes they have to take, they know their degree plan, and they know how long it's going to take them. Life challenges us all, so it's a plan, right? We plan for 2 years. It can take them 3, 5, well, when I was working at community college, sometimes 10, 20 years, right? But as long as they know a plan and a process, it's really important to their success that they have that availability. Advising and academic support. And how does this look? And why does it look so different today, right? Well, enrollment management, when it first came abroad in 1990, was really about 3 areas, right? It was recruitment, retention, and graduation. That was a simple life cycle of a student. It's no longer that simple. Now there are 20 points, right? We have first year experience. We have onboarding and student success, right? And so the more complex that it becomes, because the students are requiring it, the infrastructures have to be in place for advising and academic support systems. Retention and student engagement. How are we retaining students? How are we proactively identifying those students who cannot continue, will not continue, have challenges to continue? And how are we engaging with students? The number one indicator for retention is what? What would you believe at community colleges nationwide, the number one indicator for retention?
Support.
Nope, that's number 3. 1 and 2 are connection and engagement. And that shouldn't surprise us, right? Because if a student feels connected and engaged in the institution, they're going to be able to sustain. And when we think about student engagement, oftentimes we automatically in isolation, think about the student life programming. That's their job. But student engagement happens in the classroom. It happens every day. It happens when a faculty member gets an email and decides how they're going to respond to that. That's a student engagement, right? It happens when, hey, I've had some life circumstances and this is really hard and I need extra days on my test. And the faculty says, nope, no one else asked for extra days. You don't have extra days, thanks so much. That's engagement, right? And there is this spectrum of academic freedom that we allow, right? But we also know through studies that the engagement matters to our student population and that our student population matters to the budget and the budget matters to our jobs. Connecting the dots, right? Hard conversations to have nationwide, just generally, really hard conversations. Completion, career, and transfer success. We're at a conundrum in higher education where there's a lot of institutions and a lot of academic scholars, faculty, staff, who really believe the role of education is critical thinking, thought, and exploration. And I think that's the evolution of higher education. But our students today are really looking for transactions to careers. And it is difficult to explain to faculty that your course needs to be designed for careers, right? Because I teach philosophy, I teach Mexican American humanities, I teach psychology. How does that translate into careers, right? But the reality is all of our work translates into careers. When I was a dean of students, and students would come to me and say, I have this really bad professor. She's rude, she's ugly, and I want to drop the class. I never stopped teaching. So I'd say to the person, Megan, thank you so much for telling us how your experience is. I really appreciate it. We can process your drop today. But I want to give you a life lesson about life. When you get out of this college, you get your degree, you get into the workforce, you're going to run into a boss that you don't like, that you can't stand. We've all had them. Some are in the room. No. Some you don't ever want to hope to see again. And you can't run away. You got to eat, right? And so I'm going to challenge you to go back to that professor and figure out how you can at least get a C or a D and how you can complete the course. And the lesson here is that when you get out in your career, you're going to be stronger in how you navigate these people, right? That is learning career skills as a dean of students. You can apply that same thing in Mexican American humanities. You can apply it in psychology. And so you don't need to restructure your course. But how do you think about every transaction leading to a student's career? They're not investing in higher education because they want to think critically. They're not that smart yet, right? We can't speak a language that they don't know of. We want you to critically think and be exposed to, a marketplace of ideas. That's above their head, right? We want to get you ready for a job because a job to them means a transaction in life that will transform them and their family. So those are the 6 areas that we looked at throughout this entire process. And colleges may ask themselves, okay, you looked at that, we understand what the strategic enrollment management plan is, but how does it look like, or why should we have one here at Randolph? And the reason is because of these 5 elements, right? You need enrollment stability, not just to educate the students in your region, right? But also for financial stability. No one wants to talk about it, but taxpayers pay money. They're investing in us, right? But that money only takes this much of the budget. It only funds this much. The state gives us this much. Students give us this much. So if they're not here paying, right, then we don't have jobs. Resource alignment, to be able to get new things, right? As I pull up today, I know Richard Weldon is your CFO, so you're always going to be under construction. You're always going to have major projects. You're always going to have improvements. And that's how it should be. But you can't have that without resources, right? And you get the resources through enrollment stability. There's only so many magic hats he has. And then the hats are gone, there's no more money. Right? So it means that we have to ensure that there's resource alignment and that we continue to get resources. You can't base your decisions in what historically has happened or what you think has happened. And this is one of the toughest things to work with in terms of colleges, because we all have gut instincts, right? We all think we know what is happening. We all live the work that we do every day, so we have a perception of reality that we have constructed. But oftentimes, when you ask people, now, where do you get that? It's through their lived experiences And sometimes it may intersect with the data, but oftentimes it does not intersect with the data. The data hasn't been pulled, it hasn't been looked at, it hasn't been thought through. And so we want to make sure that in this process that data-informed decisions are made. Now, why is that important? When I was doing my dissertation, I would go up to my chair and I would say, Dr. Lincoln, I already know how this is going to end. These presidents have no idea about academic capitalism. I just have my gut instinct that, this is how it's going to go. And she'd say, well, in academia, you can't publish your gut. Right? You have to publish with data, make decisions with data. That's the same thing that I've used in my higher ed leadership. Where's the data? And oftentimes, there's an immense amount of data at institutions, but they don't know it, right? I worked with an institution just last week. I was asking, do you have any data? They don't have any data. No, we don't have any data. By the time we were done, there were 732 data points. From the Wi-Fi connection that students get on, it's a data point. How many times they log into the student information system, that's a data point. Parking passes at this institution, that's a data point. Right? You have an immense amount of data. Are you using it? Are you funneling it to make informed decisions? Access and success, to ensure that we promote the access for our region and for the local taxpayers. The people of Randolph County are investing in us, and they expect for growth and they expect for impact of their dollars. And oftentimes, we as higher ed can communicate that in terms of individual student success story. Well, this student went here and they did that. This student went right. But without data and without being able to have the conversations about the ROI, the return on investment, of here's how much taxpayers are paying, here's how many students we educated, here's their economic impact in the state, here's their economic impact in the county. That begins to speak to them about their investment in the tax dollars. Market positioning. Where do you stand amongst your competitors? We don't like to talk about this in higher ed. We're not competitors, right? There's 52, 58 community colleges, right? We're all friends. We like each other, right? We do. But there's a saturated market and a number of students that we all have to go for. And we need to know where we stand up against others. Not to break them down, not to pull them down, right? But to figure out where we stand and where our position is in the marketplace. Are we more competitive than this? Are we more competitive than that? We looked at data of students who were in Randolph County and where they're going and why they're going other places and why some are coming out from the other counties and what programs they're looking for, right? We did all this discovery because we wanted to know what our position is in the community college system in North Carolina. So here's the process, the procedure, and the outcome of the project. The inner loop is the process, right? We held a kickoff meeting. The second phase we moved into was the data discovery and analysis phase. The third phase was design and test. We designed some initiatives, we tested it. The fourth phase was the creation of the plan. And the fifth phase is where we're moving into is the actual finalization of the plan and implementation of the plan. What you'll see in terms of the procedures is we were really data centered. We leveraged a lot of data from Randolph Community College. Poor Stacy and Adrian are so sick and tired of data because I've had meetings after meetings after meetings after meetings. We created new data. We surveyed students. We had a record amount of students provide an immense amount of feedback to Randolph Community College. We asked them, I think, 47 questions. And was it 430 students responded and gave us information about why they selected RCC, when they want classes. I mean, the richest data you'll ever find. It's just a great dashboard of data as well. This plan is custom designed. One of the things that I have challenges with consultants is they're often cookie cutters. They're coming in with designs of the past of what they have, and they make you form to it. One of the things that I do is really come in and learn about the institution and co-create. So you won't see this plan anywhere else. This is not something that was built for somebody else. We literally built this plan here together that's custom for RCC, that resonates with this population and this students. I believe in shared governance and collaborative process, right? And so if you were involved in any of this, whether it was the task force or the subcommittee, your opinion was heard, you were part of the design process, you were included, you argued with me, I argued with you, I won some, you lost some, vice versa, and we have a plan together. And the final thing is that it was exploratory. We didn't go in with initial ideas that we're going to do X. What do I mean by that? Is when I opened up and said all presidents want to grow, oftentimes as a consultant, you have to come in and tell the president you want to grow, but the data doesn't suggest that you can grow. That's a hard conversation to have, right? But this was exploratory in that, okay, well, the president says we want to grow. Let's go see, can we grow, right? And we answered those questions. Yes, there are student populations and pockets in the community that we are still not tapping, that we're eligible to grow. So the idea is that we will get to 10,000 students. And incrementally, as soon as you get to 10,000, then it'll jump to 15,000, then it'll jump to 16, right? So I say that because most think that when you hit the goal, or you get near the goal, the job is done. The college is going to continue to evolve well beyond us. So who was involved in the process? These were the stakeholders that signed up, and they didn't know what they were signing up for. They thought they were signing up for a couple of meetings with Daniel, and it's been 6 months of heightened engagement, laughter, fun, arguments, some tears, some real challenging conversations, and a really impressive final document. And our idea here was that we would have an intersection between student services and academic affairs that would really dive in to this project and give all that they had as part of discovery into what we could co-create. So if you don't like the project, right, these are the people that you will hold accountable. If the project works out flawlessly, feel free to hire me anytime again, right, as a consultant, and I'll be back. What was the development and the timeline? So we started in October, and these are some key things that we did throughout these months. We had a campus-wide survey of faculty and staff to figure out the tone of the faculty and staff on whether they were really ready to engage and change management of enrollment, what they thought as opportunities. We had about 75 faculty and staff respond to that survey. Some really interesting results. We held focus groups. I held focus groups with students, with community members, interviews with students, faculty, staff, and then I also went out into the community. And it's interesting to get a perspective from the community than it is from the faculty and staff. I met with the Economic Development Council, met with superintendents, met with high school counselors, a number of people throughout the community that have a real good impression of RCC, and also provided some constructive feedback that they may not have provided directly to Shaw or Richard because, they're the ones running it. But as a consultant, you'll be surprised what people will tell you. And it's your job to safeguard the information and ensure that the information is conveyed, but the actual person and the impact isn't felt. So I did a lot of that with our task force in October. November, we did a lot of data gathering, whether it was bringing external entities in to provide data or creating data and pulling data from the data that we had, anything from enrollment to comparative enrollment at other community colleges to program assessments to outlook industry jobs, where in the United States jobs are ranking in the forthcoming industries, to North Carolina, to our region, and then how those map to the degree programs that we offer versus gaps and opportunities. We also did an environmental scan of what does all of the other community colleges look like in terms of marketing. What do their websites look like? What do their pages look like? What programs are they offering? What programs and student services are they offering that we aren't offering as well? In December, we did some initiative testing where we did some virtual events, and we also hosted a on-campus event with our external partners, because one of the things that came glaring from the initial interviews in October, as well as the survey, was an opportunity to engage the community at a heightened level. And so the task force decided to put on an event in December. We tested it, had great feedback. There was over, I think, 56 industry partners and advisory board members that came to a breakfast. They provided a SWOT analysis for us at the table of our degree programs, possible degree programs that we also assessed and evaluated. In December, we also then did a subcommittee creation where we broke into 3 subcommittees. One was focused on communication, one was focused on data, and one was focused on recruitment and new initiatives. And I worked hand in hand with these subcommittees to design different things that met the focus. So for communication, we sent out emails, we created videos. For data group, we created the synthesization of data and how we restructure the data. One of the challenges Stacy, I, and Adrian identified is the merger from two colleges to one, right? Really posed a challenge of the data that hadn't been necessarily thought through. So it's hard to ask for data reports when workforce was reported this way and in this system, and the curriculum was reported this way in this system, but we now want one dashboard that reports everything, right? So creating crosswalks about how these things change and interchange and what means this, establishing rules about data, right? Like what constitutes a new student? Do we know what constitutes a new student? Like what constitutes a returning student? Who are our students? So we design student personas. We can tell you the 5 students that come to RCC. We can tell you what they look like, who they are, what high schools they come from, what GPA they have, how they perform here, what services they use, and where they're likely to go. But then we design where are the 5 student personas that we don't have that the data tells us that we can go and get. Homeschool student, I mean, the list is there, right? Additional workforce students. So we did all of that work in these subcommittees through December. And in January, we conducted the student survey, and we also had a campus visit assessment where I came in and visited with Archdale. I visited with selective workforce programs, interviewed them about their process, their procedures, their opportunities, as well as meeting with constituents from Archdale about what that campus could be, how does it look, what are the opportunities for that as well. In February, we conducted the gap analysis. Okay, here's all the information we have. How do we stand against other community colleges? And what are the programs that they have that we're interested in? And what are the programs that we have that we can prize? In March, we developed our areas of focus. And what that means is, okay, we took all this information and we said, we now have to figure out what are the 5, 6, 7 areas that we really want to focus on. And then after we designed our areas of focus, we then talked about what are the strategies that we're going to use to move those areas of focus and what are the tactics that were actually going to be done. In April, we finalized the plan. In May, we ran it by several administrators. We waited for Lisa to come on. I met with Lisa to get her up to speed. Here we are in June, ready to implement. So what does the structure of the plan look like? This is what it looks like. When you see areas of focus, these are what? Sorry. Then these 6 areas are the areas of focus for Randolph Community College. And the first area is recruitment and engagement. So this is an area that we have to improve, enhance, restructure, redesign, work together as a group to make better. Marketing and communication. That's not on the brand of RCC, but that's on the enrollment marketing and the enrollment communication for RCC. Student access and student success. That's really looking at how we get more students in and how do we ensure that they're successful in graduating in a appropriate time frame. The tough conversation of academic and workforce offerings. Now, why is that a tough conversation? No college wants to talk about academic and workforce. Why? Secret, it involves faculty. The rest of them, you can tell staff what to do. That bullet right there is really hard to do because you got to work with faculty. But we went there and talked about academic and workforce offerings. Affordability, how do we remain affordable? How do we ensure students have the opportunity to come here? And then last but not least, the student experience. And so from each of those areas of focus, there are 5 to 6 strategies that say, we're going to do X, we're going to do Y, we're going to do C, A, B, C, X, Y, Z. And then underneath each of those strategies are the actual action items to do something, right? So I'll give you an example. For, let's go with academic and workforce programming. One of the things that we have to do is, according to our data, is we have to identify low enrollment programs and support them with an opportunity to increase enrollment, and also decide which programs at what time need to be sunsetted and which programs we need to introduce. It's a hard conversation to have, right? But do you think colleges that started in the 1940s are still offering degrees in the 1940s, or someone probably in the 50s or 60s, had to sit them down and say, that degree that we're offering about a technology that's no longer void, right, that we got to get rid of. It's not a practice that's done in higher ed. And oftentimes people want to nix programs immediately. You're a low-performing program, get rid of it. And I say, no, identify it, focus on it, provide enrollment support, provide money, give them every opportunity, give them 2 years to perform, let them be creative, let them redesign the curriculum, and then have the tough decision, right? But when I say all of that, and I say academic workforce offerings, one of the strategies is to identify a low-performing program and invest in them. The tactics would be what those things look like, right? Run the report, figure out the enrollment, meet with the people, identify how much money is needed, meet with marketing design collateral, meet with enrollment communicate, right? Those are the tactical items. So that's how the strategic enrollment management plan is designed. We wanted to make sure that when you create a plan, that it's not counterintuitive to the strategic plan for the institution. So what we did is we took your plan for RCC 2.0 and we identified intersection between the new created strategic enrollment management plan and the RCC 2.0 plan. And what we found from a lot of the conversations is some of this is the exact same work. But what RCC 2.0 does not do is go and say, what are the tactics that actually have to be done, right? So this plan will walk us through what are the tactics, what are the key performance indicators that have to be done, right? And who's going to be held responsible for. Oof. Responsibility doesn't mean you're terminated, right? But it means we need to check with somebody. In work, if you just say, hey, group, let's go do X, Y, Z, nobody's going to take responsibility to do it. You have to assign it. President Shaw, I need you to do X, Y, Z. Well, that's not my responsibility. That's Linda's. Work with Linda. Let us know how, right? So that's a main difference between the SEM plan and the RCC 2.0 plan. So you're probably saying, okay, let's just get to the plan data. Tell me about the plan. What did you find? Where are we going? So again, here are the 5 areas of focus. And what we decided is that this would be a 4-year plan, where year 1, 2024, 2025, would be the year of assessment, planning, and data gathering. Done. Check. We're here, right? And that as we move to 25, 26, we would call that year 1 of the plan. Year 2 is 26, 27, and year 3 is 27, 28. There's a lot of work here, so we can't say in year 1 we're going to do it all. We had to really think about at what year are we going to implement some of these things and what's more important and what will have the greatest impact. And so some of the decisions that we made here are going to impact work starting immediately, meaning that there are things that we said in August and September we would start to have in place. Well, it's now June, right? And so we now need to get to work to say, that's a great plan, but how do we move it from a plan to action? So for recruitment and engagement, it is recommended that we hire dedicated recruitment staff to expand the available staff to engage with high schools and to engage with community events to increase the amount of engagement of prospective students. Host semesterly partnership events. That was one of the events that we tested with the partnership breakfast that was done. Now, this needs to be done semesterly, which means we need to be now planning for the one in October or November and generating a list of RSVPs for our campus community partners to come on. Launch an annual workforce exploration days. There was a number of data that supported that much of the focus for open house and recruitment is geared toward curriculum students, but there is nothing specifically cut out for workforce students. And so how do we create a workforce exploration days with our high school partners, identifying those students who we know are not going the curriculum route but have no other options or don't think they have any other options to consider, whether it's the police workforce or the EMS that I saw out with who? Regina, yeah. Or some carpentry programs or welding programs that we have out at Archdale, right? But thinking about how we launch annual workforce exploration days in partnerships with the high schools. The high schools also said, we feel like most of the work for the RCC is dedicated to curriculum students, and there's this gap. Directly feedback from the superintendents and the principals. that we implement tech-enabled campus tour scheduling. When we think about campus tours and we think about people coming on our campus, currently we don't have one system where we know who's on our campus, we're tracking who came on our campus, we're communicating with those prospective students, and that we're scheduling tours in accordance. Right now, you can call Megan, she can give you a tour. If you're a business, you can call Melinda. Melinda will give you a tour. If you're a student, you can call the recruitment office and you can get a tour there. And it can be all days, every day, anytime, right? And once they come on, we're not tracking those students. We don't ask them the information. We don't put them in a database. We're not following up consistently. We're not, right? So this is an opportunity for us to really leverage the scholarship, the scheduling software. Revitalize Randolph Next into major, meta major engagement. So Randolph Next is an open house program that's been here for some time that's really open to curriculum students, but thinking on how we may break that down from one major event to specific areas of it, right? So whether it is photography and graphic design and technology, health science related, which may require additional days, but it's really focused and tailored to the students that we invite. Expand homeschool and co-op outreach. So I visited with the North Carolina Homeschool Association. There's an opportunity to host the region conference here on our campus. There's an opportunity to market directly to the 17,000 homeschool students that are here in the North Carolina region, in the North Carolina state. And so really thinking about homeschool students and the co-op outreach that's there. Boost presence at workforce and resource fairs. There was a number of conversations about due to limited staff and the number of requests that are coming in. We can't meet those expectations of going out and recruiting at every single one of those events. And deploying a mobile Go Center, which is really the idea of a truck and trailer that allows for computers, internet, air conditioning, access to take the truck and trailer out to rural North Carolina and engage with those high schools that can't come here, that are more rural and need those services as well. So those are the strategies that were developed under recruitment and engagement. When we look at marketing and communication, build a stronger marketing department that included hiring some staff, the director, as well as additional staff to support enrollment communications, understanding the difference between a press release and a billboard and a website, and the difference between enrollment communication and enrollment engagement through a CRM system, through mailers, through drip campaigns. That is a little bit different than brand marketing. Differentiate and focus on enrollment marketing, showcase student success stories, use market research to boost enrollment, centralize campus event promotion so that we know what's going on, when it's going on, and how we can leverage those events to increase attraction of students, redesign the RCC website and launch an intranet site. Right now, our RCC website is used primarily for faculty and staff. And let me drop the bomb. Websites should never be designed for faculty and staff. You should have an inside site where all that housed, and your only site that goes out is for students. And it should only be designed for students that look like students, that resonate with students. And if you need to go find paperwork, you need to find calendar, you need to find a form, that's on a completely different site that's not designed for students. So those are some of the things that we have to think about in terms of our website. We have a great team working in student services with our CRM, but how do we personalize it and leverage it? It was implemented 2-3 years ago, and they worked to get it up and running, and it's effective, but there's some optimization that can happen with automation, right? And right now, we haven't taken the time, nor have we had the staff to pause and have that technical skill to come in and really enhance the CRM. What does that look like? That means that you can schedule everything to be automated in the CRM that really then a customer believes is personal. The minute they apply, you get an automatic email with the video embedded that from Shaw that says, "Welcome, we're so excited." The minute they complete something, everything is automated, right? And everything is done where it just feels like somebody is really personally communicating. From graphic and design to copy to setting it up in the CRM, right now we're leveraging bits and pieces of that, and there's an opportunity for us to really optimize that. Launch an interactive campus map app that really allows us to move from paper for students to a virtual reality engagement of the campus as well as figuring out where people are. That's a problem in every campus you go to. Visitors don't know where they are, how to get to. For student access and success, implement a targeted advising model. So the idea here is that advising is decentralized amongst faculty, and it's working with students directly, but there's not a centralized model that provides professional development for advising, that requires a set of standards for every advisor, or that really allows for a process in identifying when a student is assigned advisor, when they're meeting with the advisor, or how the degree programs are being assigned and then monitored throughout. That's a big feat. You can't keep students if they can't have this process. One of the things that we discovered is, if you're looking to meet with an advisor, well, this advisor, you email them over here. This advisor, you use this website to schedule it. This advisor over here, you can only call. These are the things that we're telling our students, right? We have to figure out what is our advising software, what is our model, who's responsible for advisory, and here's how we will do that. Launch a comprehensive new student orientation program, and how we do that. We've discussed multiple ways, whether it's required or it's not required. I, as a former enrollment manager, will tell you it's required until we need enrollment. Because it creates a barrier, and we all know that, right? But for those that you can get and those that you can help orientate to your college, the results are really, really good. Expand early alert use and faculty training. Right now, early alert is done one-on-one by the dean when a new hire comes on, and it's done well, but there's not a tracking system where we report out the impact of early alerts. We share with faculty what their impact has and kind of the professional development on early alert as well. Enhancing online learning resource and readiness. There was a lot of discussion about students taking online classes, but they're not prepared for online classes. They don't understand that they're going to be online and that this is the expectation and that it's different. There is an online assessment that's used sporadically. It's how do we standardize that for students who are going to be taking these online classes? How do we help them understand what an online class is? And how do we expand the definition of online? Because right now, online at RCC is 100% asynchronous. 100% asynchronous. And online can mean synchronous. What I mean by asynchronous and synchronous is an online class is taught and everything is uploaded in the learning management system and a student goes as they wish. That's asynchronous. A synchronous online class is we meet every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 6 o'clock, and I'm there online, and we're still having this engagement, right? Right now, 100% of your classes are taught asynchronously of your online classes. So we need to think about how we think about online can mean a live person on the other end, because the performance of students in asynchronous courses, no matter where you go, is always lower than synchronous classes because you see the faculty member, right? So thinking about a definition of online learning. Offer college readiness boot camps, strengthening the advising infrastructure, leverage Watermark, which is a software solution for advising analytics. It's used to some extent, but there could be some fleshing out to really help the students schedule advisors, as well as the possibility of looking at some survey interaction with it as well. Expand math tutoring resources, support students on academic probation, and enhance career services. Now, how did we get these, right? These are things that directly came from the data, whether it was the analysis that we did or students telling us. Students telling us, I don't know who my advisor is. Students telling us, sometimes I can see them, sometimes I can't. Students telling us, well, I see them this way, but I see them that way, right? That's how this list was generated. It wasn't that I came and said, hey, we need advisors. This is what we have to do. Academic and workforce offerings, target marketing for low enrollment programs. That's identifying them, figuring out a communication and a target plan for each one of them, enhancing CTE and workforce instructor compensation. There's a differential, monetary differential between a faculty member who teaches a CTE course and one who teaches a workforce course, and it's the same exact course. So they don't want to teach the CTE course because they don't get paid the same as it. And so how can we raise that? Well, we can get faculty who are teaching the same course on the same compensation level for us to then be able to expand those programs. Expand short-term and stackable credentials, strengthen digital learning infrastructure. If 50% of our classes are going to be online, right? It's a lot. Do we have the digital infrastructure to support that? Do we have online advising? Do we have online tutoring? Do we have online professional development for faculty? Right? Do we have those things? If we're 50% delivering online instruction, then you have to have do we have curriculum designers, right? I worked with Rice University 2 weeks ago to revamp my class that I'm teaching at Lone Star College. They were offering this curriculum development redesign program for community colleges. So I took my class, and I'd never had a curriculum designer. Boy, these people tore up my asynchronous class, right? And my class now looks really good. I've never had a curriculum designer. But if we're going to offer 50% of our classes online, do we have a curriculum designer that can help faculty design a course for online? Because guess what? Faculty were never taught how to teach online. Right, so they're doing the very best that they can. The very best that I knew how to create my course. I thought it was pretty good. Hope it'll be better. Collect student feedback, align academic scheduling with student and marketing needs, offer more flexible course formats, expand apprenticeship Randolph support, launch 3 to 4 new programs, and boost the work-based learning opportunities. So when we talk about launching 3 to 4 programs, there's a list of about 15 programs we identified as the gap analysis, as well as student demand, as well as what our partners at the breakfast told us that we need. Can we do all of them? No. Which ones should you do? That's up to the BPI. But we have a list of, we know where the gaps are. We know how they stand in accordance to the occupational handbook and projected job market for Randolph County, for our region, the Greensboro region, and the state of North Carolina. Expand apprenticeship support. So when we talked about this program, there was limited availability because there's only one full-time member working with it. And so to expand it, we need additional support. Offer more flexible course formats. What do we mean by that, right? Online just being asynchronous, thinking about synchronous. The introduction to May mini-mester, we did it this fall. But how do we start thinking about summer mini? How do we increase May mini, right? How do we think about 8-week 1, 8-week 2 courses? How do we think about 10-week courses? This is right. Because it's different. It's different than 16 weeks. But why wouldn't you do that? Because our students are requiring. Right now, if a student comes to any college that doesn't offer anything out of a 16-week or an 8-week 1 schedule, and they walk in August 15th, or better yet, September 1st, we have to really tell them, you need to start next semester, right? Would a tire shop tell somebody, oh, we don't have any tires, come back next semester? No. They'd call somebody else and get a tire driven over, right? So we have to think about how we offer a 10-week course that allows people to start late, that allows those students who we know are already going to come in and start late, right? And it is redefining the way our curriculum is taught, because faculty will say, well, then I got to redesign. Yeah. When Lone Star moved my class from 16 weeks to 8 weeks, I'm still mad about it today, because I had to redesign the whole thing. And I'm still not convinced they're learning as much as they were in 16 weeks, right? But it is what it is. Here's where we are. So I get it, right? It can be done, and it has to be done, because students have options at other community colleges to walk in September and start, because they offer 10-week, and they offer 8-week 1, and they offer 8-week 2, right? And so if you can't offer it, well, I go somewhere else. And I always tell faculty, this is a good thing for you. You can teach all 4 of your classes in 8-week 1 and be done in October. Like, why are we complaining here? Oh, yeah, I'm not. Affordability. Relaunched the Presidential Scholarship Program. By way of the community. They really appreciated the previous president's commitment to 5 scholarships that generated a lot of interest from the schools and the community and the selection process of these high-achieving students to come to RCC. Evaluate scholarship distribution strategy. Most institutions, RCC is not alone in this, is leveraging scholarships for students who are already going to attend here. And although you want to ensure that the students that are coming here are taken care of with the guaranteed scholarships that they are, you really want to take your scholarships and go recruit with them new students. That's a challenge for most institutions. So typically, my first day at my previous job, The president came to me and said, we have $400,000 for scholarships. Can you go find students who are currently registered?
Very good.
And so I awarded that money. They were going to come here regardless, right? So what kind of strategy is that, right? If I'm taking a list of students and awarding it to somebody that was already here, right? I want to influence those who may not be able to come, those who are, I'm not sure, I have this other offer over here, right? And so how do we strategize and who's responsible for it and how do we synthesize it? Because financial aid will say here that we just awarded, and that's where their responsibility is, right? The foundation says, well, we just raised the money for it. We just send financial aid the list. Well, who's strategizing? Who's organizing? Where's our one application for a scholarship and who's, right? We haven't defined that, but we need to in this process, right? And I'm not saying it needs to be this office or that office, but together we're saying we need to strategize who's responsible for it and how do we leverage it in multiple ways. Secure grants for basic needs support, pilot a tuition-free promise program. Other colleges within our brand market area offer tuition-free to their students, right? They're offering tuition-free programs, promise program. We currently don't offer that. Now, as I shared with the task force, a tuition-free program is a marketing ploy. That's what it is, right? It's not really anything else than marketing. But how do we leverage that, and can we afford that? How does that look? So we're suggesting that we find a small niche of students, and we pilot it with them to figure out the feasibility financially for RCC. When you look at your students, many of them are coming for free regardless because their grants are paying for it. So that's how institutions do it. They promote, it's free, come. And those that aren't free, they then pay the difference of that, right? So how does that look for us? Promote emergency and retention grants. We do have them. There's some confusion about what faculty think they are for, who can get them. They're very limited, right? So we don't necessarily want to boost them and promote them to the campus because this money can run out in 2 days. But how do we inform faculty about them? How do we increase the need in the community to raise more funds about them? And then how do we share the success stories of those grants? Launch a comprehensive financial aid communication plan. We communicate with students right now in financial aid, but using the idea of a realtor and thinking about how we take financial aid and waddle it down to basic communication for them throughout. No college you go to will you ever hear they understand community college or financial aid. And I'll tell you, most people want to blame financial aid institutions, and I'm going to take up for financial aid, right? Because they are the one office on a college campus that is organized and regulated by the federal government. So they want to say yes, but oftentimes they have to say no. They want to work, but oftentimes they have regulations, right? That doesn't mean they can't be workable, and it doesn't mean that there's not some gray areas. But it is the office that no matter where you go, it's difficult. The perception is that, right? And it is because it's regulated by the federal government, A, and B, because it's the only office that's standing between a student and their money. Their perceived money, right? And so when you don't do what they want, financial aid is hard. And you don't, so think about how we can launch a communication. And then lastly, the student experience, launch an inclusive campus programming. How do we diversify the students who are engaged in SGA? How do we diversify the clubs that are on campus to more reflect the student population within RCC? One of the findings that I was able to meet with SGA is most of them are early college students, right? We have no traditional students, we have no non-traditional students, and yet there's a voice here that needs to be heard. How do we engage different people in the student experience beyond our early college students? How do we simplify support for student clubs? There was a lot of feedback from students that they're not in clubs because it takes too long to get answers, the process is complex, they don't know how to do it, and we can't find club sponsors, right? Those things don't make sense to me because you have control of all that as a campus. That's not regulated by the federal government. It's not regulated by state processes. You decide what paperwork needs to happen, how fast it can go. And so a lot of students, I think, have an opportunity to grow the engagement, which will impact retention once we simplify the support for student club development. Expand awareness of the transportation services. We understand that we do have a complicated transportation services here that's provided to students, but a lot of students were unaware that that's available to them as an option. Broaden student government engagement, explore YMCA Child Watch Partnership, create a dynamic student engagement space. Students identified that there's not really a student union here. There's not really a student engagement space. We have the cafeteria, but there's no club area, there's no pool tables, there's no gaming systems, there's no intramural sports. There's nothing here that would make me want to come back and stay at RCC beyond my classes. And so how do you create that dynamic student engagement space? And then launch an RCC Spirit and Business Partnership Program. We talked a lot about the University of North, Pfeiffer University, and their engagement with the community and how they've done that. And we're not in a position where we believe we can mirror it, but how do we strategically partner with our campus or our community businesses to support RCC Pride in so denser fashion? So how do we do that? Well, we do it through these areas, right? Through enrollment growth, this is how we will tell that this is working. We do it through increased student retention and success, increased credential and completion outcomes, increase the effectiveness of marketing and recruitment, enhance the student engagement experience, increase financial aid affordability, and then we set some operational benchmarks. In the actual plan, there's operational benchmarks that say, we want to advise X amount of students. Right now, the benchmark is 0, right? Not that we're not advising, but I can't tell you how many students came through advising last semester. So the benchmark is 0. So if we set an advising structure and we advise 100 students, well, we've done 100% better, right? That's how you set the benchmarks to be able to tell. Some things do have benchmarks, but there's a lot that don't, just because we don't have the place to track or we don't have the data to be able to tell where we're going. So the reality is by 2030, how do we get to 15,000? How do we get to 10,000 in between here and there, right? And you look at this and you can see the yearly projected enrollment that's needed for one college that combines workforce and curriculum, and thinking about incrementally how you do this. I think the number one thing that I found as a consultant for RCC, beyond the work that we did, I found two things, right? Number one thing is there are silo engagement within academic affairs and student services, where academic affairs operates here and student services operates here. And there's a real opportunity to merge these. During these discussions, you would hear Melinda say, oh, we have such and such. And then you'd hear student services say, oh, we didn't even know y'all launched that. What are you talking about? And then we'd spend 10 minutes discovering that she had a problem that, a solution that could solve, right? You saw it all over, even with marketing and data. And so we met twice a week and we engaged as a group. And to me, it was transformative to see them thinking about the college as one beyond their own individual units. But the number one thing that I found was really the opportunities of the people here to produce. None of them said this can't be done. None of them said we don't want to do this. None of them said we don't believe in this. I'm working with 2 other clients that I'm having so much trouble to even get them to respond to emails or to show up or engage, right? And so I said to the group, y'all are wonderful. And they said, I bet you tell that to everybody. I said, no, I don't. But you have a really good group of people that are willing to do this work. And this plan is not my plan, and the plan wasn't discovered by me, but it was discovered by the task force, and I led as the facilitator. And so I hope you find that this is interesting, intriguing, and will now take questions on anything that you have that I could help answer. And I may defer to some of our task force members if there's something specific that I can't remember or I don't know. So any questions, thoughts, concerns?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I may have missed when you presented the survey. At what point did you, or the survey was focused or included a non-English speaking population?
For the students or the faculty and staff?
The students.
So the students, I don't believe there was an option for for Spanish. But I will tell you, we had 12 people submit their responses in Spanish that then I had to translate and communicate the information to. So somehow, I don't know if they used Google Translate, they communicated their responses in some of this, and it's really interesting. And there's a Power BI dashboard that I can email out to Richard or Melinda or somebody who can send it out that shows you the raw results of everything. Now, it's unduplicated, meaning you can't figure out who said it, the students, right? But you can go see all the results and just fish through it, and there's some really good things that they say about faculty and people that have helped them, and then there's some things that you're like, oh, right? As with surveys. Yeah. Yes, sir.
But just kind of tag on to Abraham's comment there, we're in college and career readiness where our students are coming in for either to go back and get their high school diploma or to get their high school equivalency. So where do you see, and especially in the marketing piece, 'cause I know you talked about homeschooling, and so where is that in that marketing plan or recruiting plan to gather those students to even, for them to even know if they can come back and get their high school diploma or equivalency, because now that's a requirement for them to move on?
So through the entirety of the plan, there were 2 areas that were other areas of focus that were initially considered, but then we would have 8 areas of focus rather than 6, right? And so we decided as a group that these 2 other areas we would just make sure that every single one of these areas had a component to it. And one of it was Spanish speaking, and the other was Archdale Canvas, right? And so through that, when we talk about enrollment communication and we talk about marketing and we talk about program development, that's understood that we will be all looking at that in the eye of Spanish language as an opportunity. I will say, it's being recorded in public information, that you also have to be aware of the context of where we are as a country and how that plays in, right? And to know that no matter what is said or done, our work doesn't differ from the students that we serve. And that's a large population of the students. But we didn't want to have 7, 8 areas of focus, and we thought it'd be so important to keep that in every single one of them, that on the plan you'll see how does this impact Spanish-speaking students and how does this impact the Archdale campus.
But in addition to Spanish speaking, I mean, we have a lot of English speaking students who come for their high school equivalency.
Right.
So is that part of that, or?
There were 38 students who were in y'all's program who responded to the survey, right? And they didn't identify anything off the top of my memory that was concerning about the curriculum, the program. There were 2 things that came from it, and it was, what do I do after this program? Where can I go after? And then the second thing was, how do I get the student support services for this program beyond the curriculum, right? And so those are things that we would look at through the advising model. What advisor is going to be assigned to these students to help them through that right now? Currently, are there people that are assigned or not? But that's what the data yielded for us to consider. Yes, ma'am.
One of the goals for My Future NC is to have 2 million credentials earned by 25 to 44-year-olds by 2030. And Randolph County's piece of that is 21,500 credentials. Not all of them they assume would be awarded by RCC, but any residents. So what about reaching that 25 to 44 age group? They're not in high school, they're not homeschooled, they're more like what you're talking about. They're that lost group that they're not in the military, they're not working, we don't know where they are.
Yeah. There's 2 groups that we identified that we have an opportunity, which is the current non-working, non-traditional student. And then the other one that came from our North Carolina demographer that was on campus was the 18 to 26-year-old who has no college, no interest, and is living with their parent. And one of the challenging things with those 2 demographics, and I've said as a consultant, if I can figure this out, I'm going to make a lot of money, is how do you identify those students and engage them? Because from high schools, you can work directly with the high school counselors to get lists and to identify those students, right? With students who come to you and left, you have their information, you have, right? But these students who have some college no degree or are non-traditional in the age range of 24 to 40 that are not educated, and these 16 or 18 to 28-year-olds living at home, there's no database that you can go communicate with them, right? And so that's where we take into consideration the enrollment marketing. And one of the things that we're currently not doing is running social media ads. We're not running digital ads to reach populations beyond structured lists that we're given. So in my work, you do purchase ads through LinkedIn, through Meta, through Instagram, and through TikTok, and you run these ads to generate leads for those specific areas. So in one of those areas where we talked about focusing on enrollment marketing, one of the tactics is really addressing not just those, but homeschool students as well, and Spanish-speaking students, and how do we deliver these social media and digital ads that we're currently not leveraging to get to that population, because you can't go and identify them somewhere, right? You can wait outside Walmart, but they're not going to walk up to your table. But if you would encroach upon them in social media, right, and you get them to fill out a form, you've then been able to get their information and move. The number one thing to enrollment management is data, right? And most people think it's marketing, most people think it's course offering. If you don't have the data, you have nothing to start with. And so data is the most important things. And right now, we're relying on students taking initiative to apply to us as the single source of prospective student. We're not leveraging tools in enrollment marketing to put out there to then solicit them. Oh, I'm sorry, Kevin, I don't even know that, Bill. Any other questions, thoughts, concerns? Seems like a somber room, like I just said, we're doing something bad.
It's Thursday.
It's Thursday, Friday, it is. It's the afternoon. Any task force member want to provide feedback on the process or challenge anything I said, if I misremembered, or anything? And if the answer is no, it's okay. Amanda, how are you going to sit back there and not talk? Amanda talked in every single meeting, right? And now she's quiet. It's good.
Okay, do y'all want me to talk? Is everybody there?
Yes.
Okay. Y'all hear me talking enough, right? I just want to say I think this was a very thorough process, and I think that all areas of college were represented and were thought about during this process. We reached out, again, we had the big event, we brought in industry partners, we sent out surveys, and everybody was very involved and worked together extremely well, I thought. And so I think I'm really excited about this plan, the opportunity to have more exposure out in the community through marketing, through engagement, through recruitment, and also to help us, to help better serve our students that we have that are already here. And so we're just excited. We're excited to move forward with this. So if anybody has any questions at any time about the process, you're also welcome to talk to me.
We do have a website on RCC that showcases a number of this and some videos that we created as well. So if you're ever just interested in perusing the website, feel free. If there are no other questions, yes, sir.
Where is the plan?
The actual plan will be put into a project management database sheet. And once it's approved by the board this afternoon, it'll be on the website. We have not put it on the website because they haven't approved it. And so I'm visiting with them this afternoon to gain their feedback. They may say, you're crazy, right? Which may derail it. I don't anticipate, right? But once they've seen it, then we'll make the decision of where to actually post it. But one of the challenges that an institution faces is once we've created and we've posted it, how do you then make it happen? And so one of the things that I'm doing at the very end of this project is turning it into a project management database of here are all the things that have to happen. Here's who said they were going to do it. Here's their responsibility. And hopefully someone will take that and then monitor and ensure. Hey, Megan. Good. How are you? It is nice to see you. I see Megan all the time on Instagram.
Anyway, I just wanted to mention just about the website. We had a page up on the website. I guess we should have, I thought we made everyone aware about it, but.
I think we sent it out in one of our communications.
We did. We sent it out as one of our communications. And right now it's, there's video on it, explaining our process. Obviously, right now the plan isn't up there, but it's, if you just look up SEM, component our SEM hub, you should be able to find it. If not, I can say the link or whatever is best for you.
So is the video the one that Hollywood keeps calling me and see if they can buy it because
I'm not quite sure in.
I'm not, yeah,
Shaw
no,
isn't in that.
no, I
It's,
think I met that with
we're in it,
all
yeah. Some of us are, so.
Well,
Maybe the
I want to
newsletter.
say thank you. Thanks, Daniel. This is, this is the best I have seen in my, decades of experience. And the most impressive is how you worked with everybody. The other impressive part was that how engaged the deans were in this process. Normally, you don't see that, and you know that. So I'm very grateful for the instruction side, and all of them, to be so involved and engaged. So I appreciate that. Another part is, again, I know you're going to be presenting it to the board. This is mostly as an information. The board does not need to vote on these things. This is operational, even though it's called strategic. At the end of the day, it's operations. And I just like to keep the board informed. But they already are excited to meet with you and hear, what you have to share. This was, I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thank you so much. If you're private, shy, or an introvert, I'll be up here if you want to speak at fairness. There are some of those people, right? And I understand. So thank you all so much. Happy Thursday, Friday. Have a good weekend. And it's beautiful here in North Carolina.
It does.
Good.